What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Doll Benfica podcast, episode number 278. After a week off for international break, here we are to discuss the very latest and greatest about Benfica now that we're on the top spot.
Don't sound too excited.
With me tonight, Cristiano Oliveira. Cristiano Oliveira, diz olá aos senhores.
What's going on? Senhores, tudo bem? E as senhoras? Não se fala com elas?
Também.
Senhoras, como é que é? Bem-vindo.
And up in the Great White North, Mr. Steve Santos.
What's going on, everybody?
And Mr. Dave de Oliveira, our stats master.
Stats guru.
Hey, the eagle has landed. We're back on top.
Love that guy's name.
Literally. Before we get going, I just on a serious note, I wanted to acknowledge a loss to the Benfica family. If you guys don't know who I'm talking about Kerri Sousa. She was a part of this Twitter Benfica community that's created, that the podcast has helped create, that a lot of people have helped bring along. I didn't know Kerri personally, but I did have some interactions with her on Twitter. She seemed a very loving, gracious, caring person, and we're very sorry for the loss to both families, Kevin and obviously Kerri's family. So we wanted to dedicate this podcast to her, and I'm sorry that we're starting off on a somber note, but I just wanted to acknowledge the loss. It's a huge loss, especially at such a young age, and we're saddened by the news, and much like everybody, very shocked by everything that how things developed. So anyway, this one's for Kerri. Kerri, you will be missed. I'm sorry that you're not going to get a chance to see Benfica celebrate more championships, but I'm sure that wherever you are, you'll get to celebrate them your own way. So anyway, here we are, episode number 278.
You want to talk football after that, bro?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird transition here, but I had to acknowledge, as the Benfica family is poor as a result.
Absolutely.
On tonight's podcast, we will look back at Benfica's performance against Guimaraes, Benfica's game against Guimaraes this past weekend. We'll look ahead to this weekend's game actually, against Setubal at the Bonfim. And if we have some time, we'll look at the April schedule for all three teams and see what's still yet to be played. 6 games left in the league. The other two teams have one more game, and the other team has 3 more games. So we'll break that down. So I'll give you the lineup real quick against Guimaraes, and this is a lineup that hasn't changed much. It seems like Rui Vitória has found the magic formula, if you will. Varela was in goal, and André Almeida, Ruben Dias, Jardel, Grimaldo across the back, Feza, Pizzi, Zivkovic in a midfield triangle, Rafa on one wing, Servi on the other wing, and Jonas up front. Salvio is back, although perhaps not at 100%. He is back, but it doesn't look like Rafa's slowing down, Steve.
No. I would have to say that the majority of the players that play behind Jonas, even Jonas himself, may have not had their best game in this match. But for the most part, Rafa was quite decent. I mean, it seemed like everybody was just missing a little bit when they got into the final third. But for me, right now, Rafa's got his spot really down. I don't think Salvio is gonna steal it that easily. It would have to take an amazing performance from Salvio or an awful one from Rafa at this point. I remember where we mentioned it, but if you go all this time basically boosting Rafa's ego to the point that he's finally now where looks like he's playing within himself, no pressure, just playing his own football, to just drop him and bring in Salvio out of the blue would be quite harsh on him and his confidence. So I don't see that happening that quickly. But if there's one area that Salvio definitely has an edge on Rafa, that's that's that finishing, that little bit of calmness around the goal, whether it's for the final pass or for the shot on net. It seems like he's got that over him for sure. So who knows if it comes down to it and times are tight, I wouldn't be surprised if Salvia comes in at like the 70th minute and if we need a goal or something like that.
Yeah.
Just to bring those expertise in that the Hafa seems to be lacking.
Let me talk a little bit about the game. Guimaraes played very tight in the back. As a matter of fact, Peseiro was the last coach to have won for the league at Estádio Luz when he was at the helm at Porto. So he knew very well of what the strengths of Benfica, what the weaknesses of Benfica. And I think that for the most part, they did a good job, especially in the first half, closing down, staying compact, trying to take advantage of Rafinha speed to get on a counter, and they threatened a couple times in the first half, and then
They actually scored one, but the VAR
that's right,
hopefully called it back.
That's right, and then we had that penalty, which look. No matter which way you look at it, and some people may call it soft, to me it's a penalty all day. When your arm is not in a natural position and it's adding volume to your body, regardless of whether the ball goes against your arm or not, that's a penalty all day. I mean, a guy could be standing in front of the goal, arms outstretched, somebody shoots it, it hits him in the arm. It doesn't mean that the arm hit the ball. It was the ball hitting the arm. Still, you're increasing the volume of your body. Therefore, that's a penalty all day. And I think that what helped the call is the fact that Jonas is right behind that player. So if the ball doesn't strike that player's hand, there's a chance that Jonas can get that ball. I think that if that ball is actually headed and it's going for a goal kick, I don't think he calls a penalty because nobody has a chance to play that ball.
To me, it's a penalty. I mean, clear penalty. I don't care if there's somebody behind them, somebody in front of them, somebody on top of them. I could care less. He was by his lonesome in the box, jumping with his arm in a forward position in front of his face. I mean, absolutely no business having his arm there. So to me, when I saw the play, I started screaming. I said, that's a penalty. So I'm glad they call it. There's incidents where, a guy's looking one way, the ball hits him. You can make a case in certain instances, but I think in this one, I think it was clear as day. To me, like you said, his arm is was in an unnatural position, and therefore, he stopped the ball in the body. I never understood jumping up like this. It doesn't make no sense. Yeah. And for those of you that are not watching the video, obviously show your little muscle in your arm and put your arm in front of you. That's exactly what he did, and it made absolutely no sense to me. So
yeah,
right call. And I'm glad that the referee saw it and the VAR confirmed it. So
yeah, absolutely. So Benfica goes into the half up 1-0. Again, second half came out perhaps again struggling to penetrate, some lack of speed in the final third. I know Steve, you had a chance to watch the game again yesterday, or actually watch it for the first time yesterday. So you're a little bit more. Your memory is a little bit more vivid. Talk to us about what is it that Benfica is missing to be able to penetrate these teams that set up shop in the final third.
Honestly, I thought in the first 20-25 minutes we looked good. We were able to break down them in the final third. We were creating some decent chances. I think that just the guys that are normally those guys that create the imbalances, that create the mismatches, they were just having an off day. I mean, Zivkovic rarely was able to attract Marcus towards him to basically bring somebody out towards him so that there's a space behind them and he can find the open man, etc., etc. And that's one of his strong suits, and it's something that throughout the game you saw very little of. That's what I thought was missing the most on our part. I think Guimaraes were very content to not leave, to vacate that space. I think up until the 65th minute, you saw Guimaraes that had no intention of coming out to press us, had no intention of really playing any kind of football out from the back or anything like that. It was always trying to see, like you said earlier, if they could use Rafinha's pace, see if he could maybe isolate him on a early ball with one of our center backs. But even then, those situations were quite rare. And when they did happen, credit to Jardel and Ruben Diaz, who for the most part kept that at bay. For me, the real thing, it was just one of those games where the players that make the difference, the players that really make you better than a Guimaraes, weren't able to pull the rabbits out of the hat that they normally could. And I think we saw that up until the goal that was the biggest rabbit out of the hat. I mean, that goal it comes from a moment where Guimaraes are finally ready to come out and attack and try to get us on a counter, and we win the ball back off them quickly, and we're going straight right back down their throat. And that's where, at that moment, Zivkovic finally gets that little bit of traction in the player, and then lays it off to Raul, who does that Rabona, or what's the other way you guys say it? Litra. But why is it Litra? Could you explain?
I don't know where the terminology comes out of, but I think that's what they call it, because it's almost like you're writing in cursive, because you're kind of like twisting.
That's probably exactly it, man.
L behind, you're bringing an L behind a
so
L.
It looks like you're making some kind of a letter.
Yeah, you bring in the L and swap. Yeah, that's if you went to Portugal, that's how they teach you how to do the L's. You remember?
That's
the 60s. They taught you that in grammar school.
The 60s.
No.
That's exactly it. I know.
Yeah, that's where I'm making sense of it. I don't know if there's if anybody knows if João Gomes is up.
No, that's what it is.
He will know.
That's what it is.
One leg going one way, then the other one.
Yeah, and the L comes over.
Yes, it is.
Same because they don't even call it that in Spain. I think that's a very unique term only to Portuguese football. So anyway,
but look, I'm gonna jump in here.
Go ahead,
because I've had this conversation with this guy to my left, and Dave was part of the conversation as well. Steve, and you weren't here, but you asked him what about the difficulties that Benfica had in this game, and what could have changed, and yada yada. And I said this a couple weeks ago, and I know I'm a big believer in those. What's not broken, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah,
kind of. But Steve, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure if you had the privilege of listening to myself and Alfredo on your way to work or not.
I told him not to waste his time.
Okay, but to me, right, it's another game that once Benfica makes that substitution, brings in the second striker, they get a little bit more breathing room, and all of a sudden they start attacking a lot more. They start becoming a lot more dangerous. And I know you're a big fan of the 4-3-3, as am I. But I've always been a fan of 4-3-3 with the right players more so than the system itself, right? But that being said, another game, Raul comes in, changes the whole game because it allows Jonas to come back and play the ball and get into free space rather than having a guy on his back constantly 24/7, because now you got to worry about Raul because he's a guy that has tremendous movement, never stands still. So I've said this before, and if you weren't listening, I'll rephrase it. And for those that didn't listen, I'll say it again. I think that Benfica should maybe consider, Benfica should consider maybe switching back to a 4-4-2 rather than a 4-3-3. Servy's dropped his level. Yes, he's not playing at the same level he was at one point. And I think Benfica are creating a lot more chances compared to the 4-3-3. Therefore, I want to make this change earlier rather than it being too late, because I understand that Raul's been the super sub and things have worked wonderfully, right? Everything's coming out roses when he comes off the bench. But I'm scared of that one game that is 0-0 in the 60th minute. He comes out, you can't crack the barrel. It's tough. So where do you stand on that, Steve? Do you still stick with the 4-3-3? Would you maybe reconsider 4-3? Because at the time, I understood the team needed that injection of another midfield. But right now, I think the team plays better with that second striker. Where do you stand on this?
Disagree. For me, I think the team's playing probably the best football I've seen it play under Rui Vitoria with the 4-3-3. I think you're taking the 4-4-2 as the only variable, the only context of what's going on at said moment in the match. Just this past game, Vitória Guimarães finally decided that they were going to vacate the space a little bit and try to come and get the goal that they would have needed to tie the game, just moments before the goal.
But Steve, I'm not talking about this one game.
No, I know,
I'm talking over the last 4, 5, 6 games.
In all those 4, 5, 6 games, I felt that we were still creating chances. I didn't feel like we were being bogged down by the other team. I didn't feel like we looked hopeless. I honestly think the 4-4-2 and the bringing on Raul, who's a player that, regardless if you're going to give him 20 minutes or 90 minutes, he's going to give you the same output. He's going to play at a different speed, a different intensity than anyone will be able to counter, or not anyone, but
at
the vast majority
at the time of the game also.
The vast majority of the players on the pitch, especially in the teams that are not Porto, Benfica, Sporting Braga, those players, when a player like Raul comes in with the physical attributes that he has, the mentality that he has, with only 20 to 30 minutes left, it's a big game changer, especially when for the first 60, 70 minutes, you're seeing less and less of the ball. Benfica's crowding you out in possession, keeping you penned in. I think the moment you have Raul there with Jonas, you lose some of that possession. You lose some of that. What's the word I'm looking for? You lose the things that I said earlier. Raul pulls that rabbit out of the hat today, but the other 60 minutes, he may lose the ball where you need to keep that team penned in. You cannot lose it. You need to recycle possession. You need to go from one end of the pitch to the other just because one side's overloaded, and Raul doesn't have that mentality to know when to step on the ball and see what's around him and look at everything else. I think Raul as an accelerator, as a game changer,
agitator.
Is perfect.
That's what.
Right, let me pose the question another way. Right?
Sure.
You'd agree that Benfica is at its best when Jonas is involved in the play and at his best, correct?
And he's been at his best with the 4-3-3. My opinion, he's been at his best.
I guess we see the game different because I disagree on that. But because I mean, it's you could tell it's totally different. The team itself is totally different when you get that second strike and his moving. He's involved and more so than having his back to the goal and waiting to get the ball. I think Benfica is way better when Jonas is playing as that false nine rather than the sole guy up top. That's my opinion, but that's fine. So there's no point in even going further because obviously we don't see the game the same way. So you'd rather stick to where it's at. I'm a guy that I want to see my best player, my most effective player, be where he's most comfortable. I've always been one of those that I want to put players, and we've had this conversation.
Absolutely,
I want to put players where they're comfortable, and it's not. I'm not like, how do I put it? I'm not sitting here and praising Jimenez because I think he's not. Oh, the guy, he pulls stuff up sometimes. Like, what the hell? And then he misses sitters. I get it, but it's more of, I think, the team overall. And I think Jonas because I think Benfica is better when Jonas is more involved than just sitting up top and waiting for the ball. So I guess we look at things different.
Playing well with the 4-3-3, Jonas is involved. I don't think Jonas has ever looked uncomfortable in the 4-3-3, especially when we're playing well. When we're playing well, Jonas is not markable. He's not sitting there in between the center backs. He is withdrawn, and then you'll have Servi running past him. You'll have whoever running past him. He'll spread the ball wide and arrive late in the box. I disagree. I think Jonas has been really good since we switched to the 4-3-3, where a lot of people were expecting him to do what you thought he was going to do and try to occupy center backs, play with his back to goal. And when he's forced to do that, sure, sometimes he might look not as good as he normally is. But when we're playing well and he's able to drop off those center backs because we have a good constant possession, because now that's where he's gone to look for the space. I think it's the best football he's played for us, really. I think since the 4-3-3 has come along, since we've turned the year, from January to now, I do not think under Rui Vitória we've ever played anywhere near as well as we have now.
You think this year's
I agree.
Jonas? You guys think this year's Jonas is better than first year Jonas?
Yep. I mean, look. We'll take this. We'll take this
Yeah, let's
this
just
chance to
move on,
throw out
but-
some numbers that Dave has so kindly done the research for us. So 150.
Sorry, not this year's in 2018. Yes.
150 games for Jonas played so far. He scored just this past weekend. He scored his 32nd and 33rd goals in 32 games. So that's quite a feat. He tied Mats Magnussen for most goals in the league so far, and he still has 6 games to go. Only Eusebio has scored more than 33 goals in one season for Benfica. 1973, 40 goals. In 1968, 42 goals. So that this is, I mean, when you talk about is this the best Jonas? I think that you have. We all know Jonas' technical ability, but I think that the one thing that perhaps you can grade him on whether he's been better than one season or another is his goal output. And I know that last season he had some injuries.
31 2 years ago when he had another guy next to him that scored 20. Is there even a guy on this roster with double digits except him? Is there? Dave?
I don't know.
There another guy? I don't think there's another guy with double digits in goals in the league at least. You have to
probably not.
You have to remember he had 31 and Mitroglou had 20 something himself.
Yeah.
This guy's the only guy scoring for. So on the goal output, yeah, you guys are correct. I mean, 33 goals with 6 to go. Goal output. I'm sorry.
Well,
he is not 2 years ago. My man was not only scoring, he was creating.
Well,
He's doing all that.
But not to the level he did 2 years
But
ago.
let's look at the
Not to the
support.
level.
Let's look at the supporting cast that he also had on those seasons. You know,
He had more
different
guys
supporting.
to play with.
All right. So I'll ask you this question: out of all 3 seasons that Rui Vitória spent at Benfica, do you consider this one to be the strongest Benfica team?
No, but that doesn't take away from the way he played. Doesn't take away from the fact that I could turn it around and say he's not creating this year because his teammates are.
But that just makes it more impressive that he doesn't have the supporting cast and he's able to have such output.
I won't argue his goal tally. He's got 33 goals. That's more than he did 2 years ago. So I can't. That's obviously I'm not dumb. I'm not going to argue that. Can't argue that. His goal output is better than what it was 2 years ago. Fine, I'll give you that. I thought he was a better player at that time because he was getting more involved. Again, look at his assists. He probably had a lot more assists playing with Mitroglou. He was playing 2 straight. I think he was more involved in the game. He was more decisive 2 years ago than he is this year. This year, he's scoring goals and he's involved, but not to the. I think he plays a lot better when he has another guy and he has a guy to pretty much 1-2 off and play off up top. I see things differently.
Look,
I don't know.
Cristiano,
I thought 2 years ago he was spectacular. This year, he's scoring. The guy's tremendous. He's
bottom
scoring a lot of
line,
goals.
Bottom line is that goals win games, and Jonas has scored a lot of them this year, and he's gotten a lot of wins. 8 consecutive wins for Benfica. After 28 games, it's the first time this season Benfica has had sole possession of first place in the league.
With the inclusion of another creator in the midfield with this 4-3-3, whether it was Krovinovic or whether it's Zivkovic, Jonas's inputs do not have to come in as often. He's not going to have to see the ball as many times as he did before. It's the quality of what comes out of his possessions that is important, and that is really the difference maker for this guy. I mean, the guy, every time you get him the ball, whether it's going to end up in the back of the net or into a teammate's feet in a better position than when it first started, it's always coming out in a better position.
I don't know what you guys watch. You got guys at the beginning of the year hitting us up here on the podcast talking about he should be benched, and we laughed it off.
I said 2018.
But still this year, I'm kind of I give you 2018.
Since 4-3-3,
I get it.
4-3-3. I think the quality of his play has been
in October. It wasn't in January.
Okay. So
it was in October.
But it has
January.
progressed.
For us, is what? Porto game in December?
And it progressed when Zivkovic went in, because I thought Zivkovic was better than what, and as good as Krovinovic was. I thought Benfica was actually playing better with Zivkovic in that position, because I thought he spread the ball around a little bit more. But whatever, they're both fantastic players. But don't act like all of a sudden the magic came on in January. We're playing a 4-3-3. October we started. That's
I
2 months
look,
into the season.
I have to agree with Steve. This is the best Benfica I've seen.
Fine, I'm not
play
arguing.
under
I
Vitória.
mentioned Jonas specifically. I didn't say Benfica under Vitória. I said Jonas specifically. And when my best player is more comfortable playing a certain way, I suit the players.
Chris,
I make players comfortable. But we disagree on that. That's fine. That's what makes this fun.
Here's my counter argument. Do you ever feel that maybe Jonas, in previous systems and previous tactical setups with previous players, had to do more and more often than he currently does? And that's why he looked better and more.
What
He was more involved because of the system. He had to be more involved.
I must be blind. I don't. We must be watching different games. I
But
think.
what he's asking you.
I think.
I'm asking you if you think that.
I think he did more before than he does now. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Because the system allowed him to be more involved.
Because the system forced him to be more involved.
But you guys just argue that those rosters were better, but now you're telling me he's forced. To me, he was better before.
But you don't.
This year he's supposed to do more because he got less to play with.
But you don't judge Jonas solely on goals.
No, I don't.
You judge him on his involvement.
Because he's got the feet to organize and get players involved.
So the system in seasons past have allowed him to be more involved. This season, because of the 4-3-3, he's less involved in your eyes. So that makes him less of a factor for you.
Yes, with Jonas is the type of player that you look at Ronaldo, where Ronaldo turned out to be today, right? When he's not scoring goals, not doing much else, right? And Jonas is not at that level yet, but there's games where he's totally annihilated, and then he shows up in the 28th minute, he scores a goal, creates a chance. He did nothing for the previous 20 minutes. And I want my guy involved. I want my best player involved. That's what I'm trying to say. Has he been effective? Oh, without a doubt. The numbers speak for themselves. 33 goals. He had 31. So, I mean, even a dummy could do math. He's been more effective. Fine. I'm not going to argue that. I'm talking about as far as getting involved in the game and creating chances for other players. I don't think he's been at the level he was 2 years ago. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, look, I understand what you're saying.
He's got 33 goals and what? 7 assists. I bet you had double-digit assists along with his 31 goals 2 years ago.
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
That's all I'm saying.
The way you judgment is his level of involvement.
Dude, look, we're not talking about a guy who's a Cardozo. Stay up there, we'll get you the ball. I wasn't expecting Cardozo to do nothing but score goals. So my judgment on him was, is he scoring? Is he putting away opportunities? Fine. Then they always have the second striker where you expect them to come back. I do, based on who you are, is what I base my expectations on.
Chris, I get it. I think you see Jonas as the only striker, and you're thinking that he's only doing one thing, but he's not just sitting up there and scoring goals, man. That's not what he's been doing. I will agree with you that he doesn't see the ball as often.
You can't argue with me that he doesn't drop back a lot more once he gets another guy along there with him, up top with him.
Yeah, but he has to vacate that space, dude.
My point. Exactly. That's what I like. That's my point.
Yeah, but when he's further away from goal, less of a chance he has to score a goal.
But he's creating opportunities and opening up space for other dudes.
But he's creating opportunities for who?
He's been working for Jimenez. He's been our super sub. Everybody's
but nobody. You just said nobody has double digits.
I'm willing to bet.
So him dropping is not helping anybody get to those double digits.
Makes him a better player though, and he's scoring.
Chris,
go look at 5 out of the last 6 games, right? With the exception of 4-0, 5-0 victory, couple games. Go look. The games opened up once he got that second striker into the game. It opened up. And that's the way I look at it.
But Chris, maybe you're not looking at the fact that that's what the game needed at that time.
Okay.
Not necessarily what the game needed from. I get what you're saying.
That's fine.
I get what you're saying. And there's been an argument here that the teams that Benfica has played against, or the majority of the teams that Benfica plays against, it warrants us to have a second striker because the teams are inferior. We need to break them down. Look, that's been an argument for the longest time, but that second striker didn't help us. So
didn't help us?
No, not in the beginning of the season. But so when you say that you want,
but I started this question to Steve that along my 10-minute speech was at the time we sat here like we even discussed should they go to a 4-3-3. We discussed all that, right? But then once it started working, we all agreed, this is working, and I agreed with it.
Well,
but the way the games have turned out over the last month and a half or so, it begs the question. I'm just asking a question. Now, whether you think they should play a 4-3-3 or 4-4, that's fine. We're all entitled to that. And just like we're all entitled to our own opinion on whether Jonas plays better or not with alone up top or whatever, that's fine. But I'm asking questions, man. This is what we do here.
I got a couple of factors that I could add to this. One is, as you mentioned, that you like to see the guys that are influential involved in a game. When you got a guy that's like Krovinovic sitting on the bench that could be influential, and he was the one of the sole reasons why we changed to the 4-3-3, then there's that point. Then there's guys that only come in, and look, I hate to just specify this to Raul. There's guys that's their role. They come in and with the energy and with some of what they're seeing from the outside are able to go in and find the holes.
Totally understand. I've always said it. It's a lot. Sometimes, believe it or not, it's a lot easier to come off the bench than it is to start.
Let's turn our attention now to the Setubal game that comes up this Saturday, 3:30 locals. Setubal is currently 13th, 28 points from 6 wins, 10 ties, 12 losses. At home, 5 wins, 6 ties, 3 losses. They have lost to Desportivo das Aves, Guimaraes, and Porto. They have allowed a total of 50 goals. That is the second worst defense in the Liga Norte this year. Last time Benfica won in Setubal was December of 2015. And I'll give you the last 10 between the two teams. 7 wins for Benfica, 2 draws, 1 loss. The last 5 at the Bonfim, 2 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss. Last season Benfica lost 1-0 to Setubal. This season at the Luz, 6-0. Goals from Luizão, Jonas 2, Salvio, André Almeida, and Zivkovic were the scorers of those 6 goals. I don't think this is a very difficult game for Benfica on paper. Setubal still has quite a bit to play for. Then they're not entirely safe yet from the relegation zone, even though they're still within a few points of the relegation zone. But the teams that they have underneath of them are probably not teams that are capable of runs. But nonetheless, they're coached by Peruteu's great grandnephew, Peruteu's grandnephew, Coseiro, and I do rate Coseiro as a coach. He's an intelligent guy, and he may, just like Peseiro, may very well set up the team in a way to help his Sporting. As we know, he's a Sporting fan, and so not a difficult game on paper for Benfica, but nonetheless, I think that Benfica needs to remain focused and they need to keep their run going.
In a game that the Vitória Setúbal, I guess, hierarchy, president, whomever, decided to ban all Benfica apparel in the stands.
Why don't we hear this about blue shirts and green striped shirts when those games come up? Why is it always Benfica?
I would just dare to guess that maybe they don't travel as well as we do. I'm guessing. I'm afraid that's a question for them. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure those guys don't pack the stands. I know that the blue team had 4,000 traveled south this week for the game on Monday, and they made a big party because it was 4,000 traveling.
Yeah,
Whippy, and the stadium was empty. We obviously packed stadium, so I'm assuming that's the reason why. I don't know.
Look, I get it. The bancada por sócios, they don't want to see Benfica jerseys in the sócios bancada, and let's not forget this is a bancada for sócios that perhaps gets 1,000-2,000 people in there on a normal game, but now all of a sudden you got Benfiquistas that are probably sócios of Vitória de Setúbal, and now they can't wear their jerseys. So
I think you're paying customer. As long as you're not butt naked, come in whatever the hell you want to wear. I'm entitled to wear whatever the hell I want to wear. So if you sold me a ticket and I want to come in with the opposition's colors, what the hell's
a banana
the
suit?
I don't know about that. That wouldn't be ugly. That wouldn't be a pretty sight, I should say.
Banana hammock.
Yeah. So not too long ago in December, Benfica played Setúbal for the Taça CTT. I think that was the last game of the round stage. The group stage, and Benfica tied 2-2.
And Setúbal wound up advancing, correct? I think Setúbal. I think Setúbal advanced.
Yeah, that was the one that João Carvalho had that magical goal, I think, against Setúbal, if I'm not mistaken.
His one goal. Because you guys not remember, it's one goal.
One similar to what he scored for the national team not too long ago.
Oh, that one of the Nationals, it was disgusting. He chipped the guy in the 6.
Yeah, it was kind of like that.
Was it? I don't remember.
Yeah,
I mean, it was so magic. Oh, it was a Setubal. That's probably why. That's the Cerveja. I probably wasn't watching.
Yeah. So now that we're in sole possession or sole possession, we're in sole possession of the first place with 1 point ahead of Porto after Porto losing to Silas's men, Belenenses in Belém. Here's what we got remaining for the last 6 games. So we're at Setubal. We host Porto. Then we go to Estoril. Then we have Tondela at home. Travel to Alvalade and finish up with Moreirense at home. Porto has Aves at home, and then they come to Estádio Luz. Then they have a midweek game against Sporting for the Portuguese Cup.
That's meaningless. I don't care about that.
And they host Setúbal at their stadium. They then have a very difficult game in Madeira Island against Marítimo. They host Feirense, and they finish off in Guimaraes. Sporting now has Athletic Madrid this Thursday for the first leg of the Europa League, whatever quarters, semis. No, it's quarters. Right? Then they have Paços Ferreira over the weekend, probably on Monday. Then they have again Athletic Madrid midweek next week. Then they go to Belenenses, which, by the way, Belenenses is taking points from all 3 big clubs.
I think that's the same day Benfica plays Porto.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. That's correct. And then
so hopefully we get Foguetes, blue and red Foguetes in Lisboa.
Then they have that game, that second leg against Porto for the Portuguese Cup. Host Boa Vista, travel to Portimonense, then host Benfica and close out in the Madeira Island against Marítimo. I got to be honest with you guys, and I might be going on a big limb, but I'll explain my reasoning. I think that I know it's early, and I usually don't like to jinx myself.
So then don't
on these things. But here's my reasoning, and I think I already told Steve, right? Knowing what we know about Rui Vitória in terms of being a man manager, a super motivator, a guy that could rally the troops, a guy whose guys value him as a person, as a coach, and that will do anything for him just because of who he is and the motivation that he brings. I think it would be very, very hard for Benfica to lose this first place through the end of the season right now. And look, we've had the past couple of years where we've seen what's gone on in the later stages of the season. We've had years where JJ has kneeled at the Dragão, and we all know how that went. I just think that Rui Vitória, as a motivator and as a manager of men, and at a time in a season where the mental aspect of the game to remain concentrated, to remain focused, is most important. I think that Rui Vitória perhaps has an edge over any other coach in the league, especially of the 2 oppositions. I just want to go out there. I didn't want to say it yet, but this is my reasoning behind what I'm saying. So take it as you will, with a grain of salt, if you'd like. But to me, I think that it'll be very hard for Benfica to relinquish this lead.
I basically share the same opinion. There is the 2 matches versus teams that in Porto and Sporting, we're going to have to be very tactically sound, which is something that I've always chose to point my finger at with Rui Vitória. But I think, like you say, at this stage of the season, as much as tactics will play a part, I think emotion and focus are probably a lot more important at this stage. I mean, you look at those 2 games, and for me, I think we have the hardest run of the 3, even though Sporting plays Atletico, and Porto has a couple of their least favorite games to play, especially Marítimo away. But us having to play both our rivals, with one of them basically, as far as I could tell, done and dusted, that could only really damage us. I think we have the hardest draw left. But I'd have to say that I'm on the optimistic side at the moment. I mean, we've now been given an opportunity to approach the game versus Porto in a slightly different way than we thought we were going to have to. And with Rui Vitória basically keeping the focus, keeping the emotions in check, keeping his players in a mental state that I don't want to say he can control, but one where he can predict what he's going to get out of them is key. And I think that's where we are right now.
I don't even.
Cristiano doesn't want to jinx it.
No, it's not about jinxing.
Are you not confident?
I respect you. I love you, but I can't believe you even said that. I mean,
what about Vitória?
Yeah, the whole thing. Like Vitória, I agree with you that he's everything you said he is. I agree with Steve on the most difficult schedule. I just disagree with the feeling confident over the top and sitting there and I disagree with you 1,000% what you said. No, I don't say this. I disagree that you said it, right?
You rather me have not said it.
No. That I don't see Benfica relinquishing, the lead. I mean, that's great, and I hope you're right. We have a very difficult schedule. I mean, you're bringing up Atletico Madrid's and a Sporting Taça. I don't give a crap about those. Those games to me mean they can win them 20-0, lose them 20-0. To me, it means absolutely nothing. The only thing I care about is the Liga games. And Benfica still has to play Porto at home and has to go to Sporting. It's the 2 games of the season that matter the most. The 2 games that these guys have an opportunity to rob points off of one another. And it's fine that you feel that, but to say it this early, that I don't expect Benfica to give up the lead. I think it's ballsy. It's great that you believe it, right? I wouldn't have said it myself.
You want to know what game I'm the most worried about in these next 6 games?
Studio. I get it, but Benfica can
the letdown.
Yeah, Benfica.
No, it's not that.
Benfica could tie Porto, lose to Sporting, Porto. I mean, there's so many variables in play that I'm to me. Look, I hope Benfica goes out there and spanks everybody. Yeah. Right? 1-0, 5 goals to the mão. That's fine every game, right? I have no problem. But hey, bro,
look,
like, bro,
the Porto one for me. If you beat Porto,
it all counts on that. So you beat Porto, then I'm
Porto, and you have a completely different outlook. A tie versus Porto,
it leaves the door open. Too many.
Leaves the door open. It's scary.
Yeah, because the Lagartos are gonna come in with
Deus,
Figo. Everybody's gonna come back. They're all gonna come out of the woodworks. Their guys are playing like their lives are on the freaking line, right? The president might suit up for that game.
Sporting is run out of gas.
It looks that way.
Sporting is run out of gas. They got Atletico Madrid still. They got to come from behind to Porto.
Guys. How short our memory was. Bring it back to December.
Right? None of us thought we'd win. None of us thought we'd be sitting here.
Not just that, but bring it back. When Sporting is in on all cylinders, Benfica struggling, we're all like, Sporting's going to beat us. They come as a lose, Benfica give them a show. Look, it's a rivalry game. I can't sit here, right? And I just have to be fair, guys, and I'm sorry, but I can't sit here, right? And when Benfica's down and the opposition is up and try to put a positive spin and say, it's a rivalry game, Benfica's going to show up only because, it's rivalry, these guys are pro, and then not say the same thing back when it comes the other way around. It's the same thing. It's a rivalry game.
Yeah.
Chris, but your gut feeling now is you
don't want to jinx it.
No, it's not about jinxing.
Well, what's your gut tell you?
Mike, I honest to God, I'm a glass half empty type of guy. I'm not a glass half full type of guy. I
usually am too.
I think it all comes down to what happens at the Luz next weekend. Well, 2 weekends. That if Benfica win that game, to me it's a wrap. Forget about it. But if they tie the game, it leaves the door. There's nothing that's been decided. If they get a 4-point lead after that, forget. Unless Porto goes this weekend and slips up, that could happen as well. And I'm praying that it happens. But if all things stay this, both teams win this weekend coming up, and they go to Estádio da Luz. And look, Porto needs to win. But Porto at the same time, I had this conversation when you walked in. Porto at the same time knows that a draw
Would be good.
is not that it'd be good, but it's not the worst result because Benfica still has to go play at Sporting.
And that's what worries me about that game.
Exactly.
Well, but here's the thing.
A
Too. I don't know if you
a
remember.
loss for either team is huge. It might turn the game into just an absolute bore. Not really a bore, but one of those games that are constant infractions, constant like stupid little fights and blah blah blah, and the game will just peter out.
But to just say that Porto has all the pressure to win the game is inaccurate because Benfica could put the baby to bed.
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves, and we will discuss that game next week. But if you remember, last year was actually a year that we were in Portugal. Last year around this time, I think that we were in Portugal. And if you remember, I think that Nuno Espírito Santo played with the fact that Benfica still had to play Sporting and didn't come to the Estádio da Luz to win the game. He came to Estádio da Luz to tie the game, to not give up.
Well, they admitted that. And then Benfica even started off the game, hitting on all cylinders. They take the 1-0 lead, and all of a sudden, switch went off. Benfica sat back. Sporting, Maxi scored. Benfica turned the game around because now they're like, so many emotions going through one single game that so many things could happen. But to sit here and say, like you said, with as much, and I love you for it, and I hope you're right. But I don't know if I could be as confident. Like, yo, Rivitor is this magician, and all of a sudden, look, do I have any doubts that he's going to keep his guys grounded? Win or lose? 100%. I have no doubts in that. But I think it's too early to say that when you got your two biggest rivals, your two biggest games of the year, and in particular, this is not two biggest games of the year when it's early in the season or early in the second Volta. This is they'll have 4 games to go, 5th game to go in the season, and then second. It all comes down for all the marbles, and a lot of things can happen. I mean, look, I love you, bro, and I hope you're right, and I hope to be celebrating. But I don't know if I had the same confidence.
Yeah, so we will discuss that next week when we preview the Porto game. But we have first we have Setubal to beat. The thing that worries me about against Estoril is the fact that when they played that second half, there was a lot of doubt put on Estoril's guys, their professionalism, and I think that Estoril is going to play against Benfica with a chip on their shoulder. Not only are they fighting to stay in the first league, but they will have that extra motivation as if they needed any more motivation to play against Benfica. So that's the game that worries me, to be honest with you. Anyway. I don't know if you guys had anything else to add. Dave, what's your feeling? Are you cautiously optimistic?
Yeah, I'm cautious. I threw up a stat there. Rui Vitoria's record with 6 games to go. Last season, won 4, drew twice against Sporting, and then Boavista the last game after we had already wrapped it up. And then in 2015 and 16, won 12 in a row to finish the season there. Yeah. So I'm cautiously optimistic as well.
But in those last 6 games last year, they didn't have to play Porto and Sporting within 3 weeks of each other. I mean, it's just look. I have confidence Benfica could keep this on the right path, but it's very tough. That's all I'm saying. Look, man. I'm very cautious. I mean, talk about cautiously optimistic. Oof.
But look, Porto has to go to Madeira, and if last year. They dropped points in Madeira, and that's the next week we clinched for the Tetra as well. So
I think this Porto team, with all the injuries that they're going through at this point, and not having a really deep squad, they're struggling, man. And we knew they were going to struggle sooner or later towards the end of the season.
Temos a falar muitos outros. Right. We were hoping too many things fall our way. Let's forget about that.
Let's wrap this up. So, as mentioned, Benfica will play Setubal this weekend. That's what's next up, and then we'll see what turns out. Dave will be at the Porto game, by the way. So,
lucky bugger.
Good deal. We were at the Porto game last.
We tied. Season. We lost to Setubal 2 years ago, right? In Setubal, we tied last year, right?
No, lost last year.
We lost last year.
And we tied.
So to sit here and start worrying about Portugal or Madeira, I think we should be worried about our trip to the
Setubal game is worrying me more than the Estoril game, to be honest. I feel this is a trap game this weekend coming up.
It could very well be. I
think that the way Vitória prepares his teams is, I doubt very much that the team will get into a trap game for this game.
So he prepared them differently in September?
No, I just think that he's a guy that has the
The
team
circumstances are
focused, and the team is rolling. The team is has hit stride, and what better time to hit stride right now? I think that Sporting and Porto are struggling. They're like crawling towards the finish line, as we were last year. I don't know if you remember how many times we
If-
spoke about Pizzi being thrashed.
If we only had to play one of them in these last 6 games, okay, fine. It's both. I mean, think about when you look at the schedule, when the schedule comes out, you look at certain games, and those 4 games or those 4 games that you think, okay, Benfica could lose points here at some point. I'm not saying lose the game, but lose points. And you're playing these 2 teams within the last 6 weeks or 5 weeks when everybody's bunched up right there. And it's not like, okay, you slip up today, you still got 15 games to make up. It's difficult, man.
Yep.
It's difficult.
All right. That's all. That's all.
Steve's just laughing at me.
That's all we got.
No,
Steve
Chris,
is kind of. Are you
you're-
cautiously optimistic, also, Steve?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I see everything that Chris is saying. I just feel that we're in a pretty good moment. The other teams are not so good of a moment, and I really think that at this point in time, tactically, we have the team in a moment where things are clicking, things are working. All 4 phases of the game, for the most part, are working. Yes, we haven't played Porto Sporting for a few months, but things for me on the pitch are looking on the upside. And then add in what I value Rui Vitoria's coaching ability, what I value in his coaching ability, the whole mental side of it, and how important that is at this point of the season. It's leaving me to be cautiously optimistic. But on the exact same token, I know exactly where you're coming from, Chris, and I get it. I 100% get it.
I don't doubt those qualities in Vitoria at all. If there's one thing I'm certain about,
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. That he's going to keep his guys ground. It'll motivate him, and he'll have that. No doubt in that. But again, guys, you guys all know how I am. I call a spade, and I have to be fair. If I throw out Benfica's form, when the other teams are on form, when we play each other, I got to throw out the form as well.
Yeah.
Go back 2 years ago. We all predicted a 3-0 victory for Benfica at Porto. Porto was arrasado 2 years ago. Terrible. They came in decided to lose, and I think we tied, if I'm not mistaken. Or it might have been. I don't know. It wasn't a positive result for us. This year, the same thing. Sporting Benfica. Benfica put on a show, and the season clicked and turned on that game. Right? Benfica was not hitting on all cylinders. Sporting was terrific, flying high. So if I throw the form out the window to favor Benfica, my club, when Benfica's not playing well, and say, oh, because I don't want to be negative, Benfica's not going to lose 4-0. So when it's a rivalry game, we throw it out the way. I got to do it here now too, guys. That's all I'm saying.
That's
all I'm saying. I have to be fair here too, because at the end of the day, it's still a rivalry game.
Yeah. All right, we'll get to discuss that next week. We'll have a nice preview for that game. I think that's all we got for this week. We have one question from Tiago and Tiago Teixeira. Tiago, who is the person that I referred to as Hugo.
He's probably in Wyoming by now in this truck.
This is a very interesting question and very good question. Thank you, Tiago. Let's say Benfica never signed Seferovic and kept Mitroglou. Where is Benfica at the same stage we are now?
That's so hard.
Seems this sale of Mitroglou changed a lot of pieces around the season. Thank you, guys. It's a very awesome question, but there's so many factors that you have to look at. Where is this Benfica with Mitroglou?
You think that many? To me, it's simple. If they don't sell them, they're still in a 4-2-2 and a 4-4-2. I don't believe they ever go to a 4-3-3.
Where is Krovinovic fit in this system with the 4-4-2?
Krovinovic might actually be healthy because he probably wouldn't be playing as much. And Zivkovic would have still been practicing at the beach by himself.
It's one of those ifs that makes a huge question.
Yeah, but here's a big question. Does Mitroglou affect Varela?
Varela?
What?
It's just a joke.
Oh, here I'm trying to freaking think of theories in my head, and
bro. He scrambled my mind. I said,
same.
"What Well, Varela,
Varela hasn't allowed goals in 4 games.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah, please.
And he took out Ruben Diaz also. Good thing we had international duty.
If there was if there's that's the one thing that's scaring me the most over these next 6 games, because
saves the ball always in those tempos.
Yeah,
notice
Dude, I don't even want to talk about him, bro.
Yeah, let's leave the Varela talk.
The one thing I can say about
Cristiano has a theory about Varela.
The one thing I'll say about Varela, Steve, is this, bro. That there's a lot of things that I've seen fans, right, and diehard fans or whatever, lunatic fans, good fans, bad fans, whatever, right. There's a lot of things that leave me in awe, but one of the things I think that's topped everything I've experienced in a Benfica as a Benfica fan is the fact that there's actually fans out there, diehards, got to be diehards, blind, might be blind. That no, I'm not saying that want to argue that Varela is this outstanding goalkeeper because he's gone 4 games in a row without allowing a goal. So this guy's got to be the good. So that leaves me in like, see that look when I don't even know what to say. So he's a fantastic goalkeeper. Hey, I hope he's a champion.
Anyway, that's all we got. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Cristiano. You can find Cristiano at 10CO10. At Steve Santos 6. Dave is smart and is not on Twitter. At Benfica Podcast is where you can find the podcast Twitter on there. And that's pretty much it. Don't forget to subscribe via iTunes. We're on Stitcher. We're on Google Play. We also post all the episodes on Facebook if that's your thing. If you're not afraid of your identity being stolen. So anyway, that's all we got. Next week we'll be back. We'll recap the Setubal game. We'll look ahead to the huge game against Porto at Estádio Luz, a game where Dave will be at. Thanks very much for checking us out. And again, our condolences to the families. Absolutely. and for the loss. She will be missed.
We're here for you, Kevin.
And big shout and abraço, Kevin. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot, and thanks for you guys, the guys that were watching this live. This will be available on iTunes and also on YouTube. Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend, and Força Benfica.